This is the first time I've ever done this presentation. I built it especially for this day, so let's see how it goes. It could be terrible, it could be amazing. You can be the judge of that and let me know. Please don't try and offend me. I'm sensitive. But this is the talk, so if you're in the wrong room, you're free to leave now, but this is going to be chatting to Azure SQL. I don't mind if you want to leave, but also if you fall asleep, I have a loud voice, so I will wake you up at times. I get very enthusiastic about what I'm talking about. Who am I? I walk a lot. I have quite ADHD. I like to move, so if you see me wandering around a lot, I'll be doing that. So, but I am Danny Kruge. I'm an English guy. I live in the Netherlands, and I was a SQL DBA at heart. When I was living in England, I had my first junior SQL DBA role. I worked for a company called Next. They're like a retail store in the UK. I did that for 2 years, and I learned that by 8 months, sitting, watching Pluralsight 9 to 5, blitzing Pluralsight clauses like hell. I was getting paid for it. I was happy. I'm getting paid to learn, so I can't knock it. But after 2 years, I wanted to be a bit more senior. In the UK, it's a bit more corporate style. They'll give you the title, but they won't give you the raise. So, okay, well, that sucks. Give me the money. A side note, I met some Dutch guys while I was traveling in Bali. I visited them in Amsterdam a few times. They were like, why don't you live in Amsterdam if you keep visiting here? Oh, good idea, why not? I found a company called Arbelli. They hired me. Idiots? No, I'm joking. I worked there for 4 years. After 2 years of working there, they have quite a small infrastructure. So I got a bit bored. 2 years, you enjoy Amsterdam. I was young, single, you do what you want. I was like, I can't sustain my lifestyle like this. Let me actually learn something again. Schuberg Phyllis, who I work for now, came knocking on my door, and they are like a candy store. They have a lot of different customers, so if you get bored of a customer, you can move on to the next one. I shouldn't say bored, I could offend a customer if you're here, I apologize. But I'm also the Azure Heroes organizer in the Netherlands. I also run the Azure user group in the Netherlands. And on top of all that, I have 2 kids, and I live in Laden. If you're a Dutch person, you know Laden. I always make a joke saying I live in a celebrity's shed. I don't have a massive mansion or anything like that. Okay, the content. So that's enough about me. I want to go over a bit of what we're going to discuss today, introduction, a bit of a data challenge, a solution overview of how to chat with Azure SQL, a demo, let's see how that goes, that's always interesting, use cases, best practices, wrap up, blah, blah, blah. I won't need to go into that. Okay, so the data challenge today. Yeah, as a SQL programmer, so yeah. There's a little SQL joke for myself, but it makes me laugh. The traditional way to interact with databases, either T-SQL, Python, or whatever you want to do, even Excel, which you could do, you probably shouldn't, but you can extract data from it, and then you can interact with your databases like that. So you normally have someone who's specialized in talking to the data, someone who knows T-SQL or something like that. That gives you a bit of a restraint in a sense if you don't know. So if you're a business user and you want to know the sales reports or something like that, you have to go to the data team. And that can be, depending on the organization, can take time. If they want new reports or new insights, that takes time. You have to test it as well. You shouldn't just pump it into production, but you could, like a little cowboy. But hey-ho. So if you're waiting for the data team, it could take time, and the managers above, Mr. or Mrs. Manager, wants it now, or wanted it yesterday. So that kind of can have a need for natural language interaction. So I want to show you how that can be done and where the future could be going. I don't say it is going to go that way. I have no idea. I'm a SQL guy, so I love using SQL because it's just what I know. So and I know it's like the source of truth. If my code's wrong, then I'm the one who got it wrong. So if you have natural language and you can interact with your data like that, you can unlock the above. Mr. or Mrs. Manager can then go into whatever device you've made or application and access the data that way. So business can talk to their data. So what if you could just ask, so like the concept of conversational data access. So yeah, just what would be my sales trends over the next period or quarter, so on. You literally type it and SQL queries will be pumped out and actually retrieve that information in some certain aspects. Sometimes not. I'll show you a use case where the AI search is linked and it's kind of done like a full text search. So it just grabs different information and gives you an output. That's sort of what we'll cover today. How OpenAI, Azure SQL, and AI search will go into that. and how you can connect to various data sets. I'll only be showing Azure SQL, but you can connect it to blob storage, various different ones. Some are in preview, some not. How you can ensure data quality. This is a bit of an edge one. So if you came here to learn about how you could do data quality through that, you might leave a bit unimpressed. It's not, I'll show you, we'll get to that. But this sort of gives you an overview of how the interaction would work. If you went to a talk earlier, there was one about Copilot agents. That sort of gives you an insight of the first part of this. It can be a web application or anything like that, but you could use Copilot. And that would actually generate, you would ask Copilot, okay, what is SQL Server, as an example. That would go to OpenAI service, which would then go to AI search, which has already extracted the information or kept, like it's done the vectorization embeddings or whatever it needs to do on the data. So in this case, it's not actually going to SQL Server itself as a data source. The data is actually kept in here where it actually extracts it from. I was doing SQL Profiler on Azure SQL to try and see what the data was doing, like what SQL queries were it's generating. In this use case, none. It was just going to Azure AI Search, which has already got like a full text search on there and grabs it out. There's different use cases which I'll go into where it does generate SQL queries. There's loads of different use cases out there or open source ways of doing it, so I'll try and go over some of those to show you the different aspects of how you could potentially talk to your data. I've been playing around with it a lot, so you see how you can bend the rules or not and figure it out. This goes into more of like a reference architecture of how you'll actually set it up. So in a real life scenario, if you're in Azure on the platform, you'd have a little chatbot, which you could use API management. If you do, you've got to have some money. It's very expensive, so you can use like API Gateway or a different sort of resource to do that. It's just like Azure Front Door or anything like that. All those would work the same. That would forward the API towards Azure Cognitive Search. That's now been rebranded as Microsoft likes to do, to Azure AI Search. And that would also then use OpenAI to generate the actual natural language response. So Azure AI Search would already have the data. It's basically, I'll show you the concept of that, where that's already gone to SQL. You're using OpenAI just to generate like the natural language response and knows what to actually search. So if you walk through the different aspects, this shows you a really high-level overview. The user would ask a question, what was the product line with the highest revenue in 2022? That would then, you can have like a NoSQL, this is just an example, different examples on there, for conversation history, because if you reload it, you probably lost it. So within Schuberg, we have not ChatGPT, we have ChatSBB. So we don't throw data just into OpenAI open source. We have our own one where we have all the chat history, and that's where we can generate code. You can actually have it, your data actually being controlled, which is a better way. Side note. What the prompt would then do, it would get the data schema instructions, generate the SQL query, which you then see. It gives it generates it here, goes to ChatGPT again to actually give you a result in a language you would actually understand it, not just like here's a bunch of numbers. So it's a bit more digestible. So as you see, the final response. Okay, let's pray to the demo gods. I'll try and go over the different aspects of what's there, of what I've been speaking about so far. Now, this could go horrendously wrong or really, really good. Let's see. Okay. So I've got a few different, you can see it. I've got a few different resources. I've got my Kruge SQL, just the Azure SQL database. I've got Kruge Search, which is the Azure AI Search, and OpenAI. They're the different aspects that I need for setting this actual use case up. Within that, so if I go to Kruge Search, to set this up is really easy. You can actually do it in like infrastructure as code, so via Terraform or Bicep. There is some limitations to it when you're trying to set up the data sources or, I'm getting myself lost, indexes or indexes. You can do it through the API, but it's not straightforward. It's not, you don't get like a resource block if you're doing it as infrastructure as code. But if you want to click it together, it's also super easy. So you have to start off with saying what's your data source. So as you'll see, I've got like Azure SQL as my data source. If we open one of these up, it just connects in. So you choose which table you actually want it to go to, which database you want it to go to, and you can even do change tracking. So if the data changes, it will update the index as well. because in these instances, there's an indexer which actually generates gets the data at the time. So you'll see here, if I open this one up, the indexer is like what actually runs. So if you get an index, you have an indexer which actually it goes in and grabs the data. It can be it can be time-based or on if there's any change data, and you can see how many documents it's read. Failed first time because yeah, I'm an idiot, but you live and learn. And then you have an index. And the index you can actually do as you want. So I have, this is all generated on Stack Overflow 2010. So a bit more of a database which actually has some content in there. You can get that off many websites, like Brent Ozar, one of the SQL rock stars. He always publishes different variants of it. So I just have like a 10 gig version from 2010. But there's a table on there called posts. So everyone who's posted a question is in that database. So I just put it towards that table, and you just have to choose which fields you actually want to extract from. And so you can choose how much data you actually want to retrieve, the title, the body, and the body would actually be the post of what the question is. So if we go through, once you have that in place, you have to do it in a certain order, which is always throws me off. Every time I set it up, you need a data source because that's where you want to get it from. And then I normally go to the indexer because that's the next level up. No, you need an index first. So once you have the index, then you can do the indexer, and then you can actually run it to actually get the data in there. On the Kruge database, it's very simple. This is the Stack Overflow database. It looks something like this. You have the posts table. So in the raw form, this is how it looks. And you can see people who have posted questions in there, and the title as well, for an example. Somewhere over here. So that's what the data actually looks in this like raw storage. What we then have is, if we go back here, OpenAI. If you actually open up towards OpenAI, they've renamed it recently because it goes into like the platform of OpenAI Foundry or Azure AI Foundry, I think it's called, which it gives you into a new portal based, which is here. It looks like this funky thing. And this gives you already an insight. So without even having Copilot or anything, you can already interact with the data through this. So you need the database. You need, obviously, data to talk to. You need OpenAI for the actual generation of the prompts to understand what you're actually wanting to ask and actually generate the information back. And the AI search is just the intermediate, so it can actually understand what you're actually trying to like figure out. There's the bit in the middle. There is other tools around, which I'll go into in a bit, which kind of are cutting out that part. So in preview, SQL can connect directly to OpenAI. You can actually have like stored procedures which will go straight towards OpenAI, and it will even do the embeddings and stuff within SQL now. So you don't need Azure AI Search. At the moment you do, well, if you're using the preview version, not, but at the moment you can you connect it through. So once you have the database, you have AI Search, you can then choose in here which data source you want. So this one might be already linked up, which I can remove. What I have here is add your data. So if I remove data source, we can do this on the fly, and hopefully it will work, but you have a few clicks. So you can see the different options in here. There's only a few, which I'm sure Microsoft will add more, but the Azure AI Search one is in GA, so that one's ready to use. Ignore all my naming conventions. I just whipped this together. But yeah, you have my AI search. It already recognized that. And then you can choose which index. I have two in there. The one I want to actually use now would be posts. So I want to show you what actually goes through there. You just click that one. You can go on next. I want it based on keyword and AI API key. I'm going for it. I've not set up all the managed identities. But then it's already connected. And I can save, and here, if I put this little thing down somewhere, I need two hands. Okay, so I should have it there, and I should be able to ask a question saying something like, what is checkDB? Sometimes it works, sometimes not. We'll find out how it goes, but that's going into all the different things now. So you'll actually see it's already retrieved information about it. So it's gone into the database and found out different references of what CheckDB is and give me an answer about what it is. So you could use this in the same as like how you use Google or ChatGPT. What is CheckDB? It's doing a similar concept, but this is on my own data source. This can't go outside of the Stack Overflow 2010 database. If I say, what is SQL Server like 2022, I'll be like, what do you want about? Or if I say, what is the current trend in SQL? What is the current trend? Trend in SQL, it might work. Sometimes it says it's not in my scope of knowing knowledge. It can't retrieve the data. So this is like a particular use case. You have to ask certain questions, and it's not, if you give this to like an application, you'd have to really know how you could use it. It's not like people would start trying to abuse it in the way of asking questions like this, and it doesn't work. And then they'll be frustrated. So you have to know how to use it. But if you say, how to index SQL, or let's do a better one. What is an index? Then it should also give an answer about indexing within SQL Server or a different one. There you go. So that's going on the data source. And what this is actually doing, if you see it in a raw format, in AI search, I think, let me see if I can find this button. I always lose it. But there is a button. Bear with me. There's one where you can actually generate the, here, create demo app. Jeez, I found it. In that, it gives you a little downloadable. And when you actually load it, it looks like this. And I can type in, this is also doing the exact same thing. So this is where you see what AI search is doing. If I type in index, for example, it just grabs all the different, there's a full text search on the database itself as well. And this OpenAI is doing, using this, but just generating a response for you from the overview. So that's a bit more of an insight of that. That demo went really well. How much time do I have? 15. Oh no, I've got loads of time. Okay. So, and you can use it for all different aspects of that. So, and this is only one use case. I'll try and go over a few more if I have time. Oop, whoop, whoop, I don't need that. I want this one. So, where were we? That gives you a slight insight. So what was covered is like a demo against a data set, the setup between the resources, how to set up OpenAI. OpenAI is just, you click it and then you can literally click in a data source. It's not much to it. Azure SQL database setup, that's where you just generate the resource. Getting the data in there is a bit of a pain, but I use something like a data migration assistant, or you can even use SSIS packages if you put the database on a local laptop or whatever. Most of you won't be doing that because this is a demo scenario, so you'd already have the data there. And all of these tools are VNet integrated, so you don't have to have them publicly open, which is quite nice, and they should be able to cover through managed identities. So you can actually secure it. That's why I showed the reference architecture before. What you can also do, there's a pre-example, when you try and ask certain questions which don't really flow with the context of it. So when you say, what is CheckDB, it gives you a good answer. But what I'm saying, what is the column, what post has the most view counts? It gave me an answer of 3,000 something, and I was like, well, it said it can't display the information. I said, okay, well, you can use the column view count. And then it said, okay, but then it's this one. This has the highest view count. It did not. There's one in there with 6 million. So, and I said, well, this one has 6 million. He went, yes, you're right. I was, okay, thanks. It's up and coming. And if you ask the wrong question, this could be misleading because this is not the right information. If I did a SQL query, you just do order by view count. I found out, no, there's different. And then I tell it that, and it agreed with me. Okay, thanks. So yeah, there's different things. There's also what Microsoft is doing, which is pretty cool. Copilot with Azure SQL, I think this is still in preview. It says it there, but could be an old image. If you can ask a question. I didn't ask this one, but it is something like I would say, my database is slow. Okay, there's no context. You just say, okay, help me. But it gives you a lot of information about it. So if you are a SQL DBA and you're being extremely lazy and you don't want to go fetch and find out, you can ask simple questions like this, and it should give you a bit of input of like a basis to troubleshoot on, which is quite nice. But it could also be extremely dangerous if you give this to the hands of someone who You say, oh yeah, but you can check it on the database. Say it's a different user or someone. It could ask more questions than what you need, because they'll be like, yeah, but it says it here of this, the CPU is running slow, and then, yeah, it can cause you a bit more pain, because you're getting questions about something which, yeah, they're going, finding out. It's like if you give reports to someone about metrics, about how many CPU and memory, but like, but look at that doesn't look so good. Oh, yeah, okay. But anyway, it could be a cool use case going forward to help you troubleshoot when databases are running slow. I kind of like it, and so on. I have an example here. And it's also going, I've kind of answered that anyway, is Copilot always right, or you saw it by the view count, it's not. But it's something you just have to be considerate of, because I was working for a customer recently, and we were doing a cross-tenant SQL migration. So we had 2 SQL databases, 2 different tenants, we're moving them to a secure environment, all different bits and bobs in between. But through the GeoSQL replication, we wanted the secondary to be a replica. And when the customer put that into Copilot, if our idea would work, it said no. It said it can't be a read-only replica. It's not supported. Well, I was like, well, it does work. So I had to set it up in 3 different, I had 3 different tenants. I set them up, I did it, and I also did the exact query, and it works. What Copilot did here, it reached out to different resources on the internet, pulled it back, and gave an answer, which is correct in some circumstances, but this is more if you're actually trying to use it from an application perspective, not for how we're using it. We were only doing select queries, so then it would work. But it's just to know, okay, it's not in the right form yet. Use cases for what I've been blabbing on about, to give you some insights where this could be really well used. And a lot of them, what you'll see on the internet for open source ones, are more chat-based ones. So this, if you had customer feedback and reviews, you could actually get some analysis on it and summarize the insights, which is quite nice. So then you don't have to read the whole everyone's feedback. You can say which ones hate me the most, which ones love me the most, sort of thing. Storing data, so this is where a lot of people are using it for. If you look at I think the product manager, I think is David Maui, or Maui, I don't know how you say his last name. He's done many different ones which you can find on GitHub examples, and it is chat-based ways. So you can say, okay, when is my scooter going to arrive? I ordered it like 5 days ago, and it will give you a good like order status on there about that. There was also one, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, he's a data engineer. He did Zach Morris. He made an exam course for free about data engineering. He had 25,000 people sign up for it in December and January. For him to mark all the different exams, there weren't 25,000 exam papers to go through, but he pasted it into AI and he got it through to actually go mark the exams for him. And then they would get a response about how their marks were and so on. I don't know how he got that working and it was accurate, but it did work. So there's all different use cases out there and scenarios. The one I would like to show also is the data cleansing and quality. With this one, it's quite an interesting use case. I'll go through it, which you need a few different components. If you had OpenAI service, SQL database, you'd have that to obviously store the clean data or whatever dirty data you got. Azure Functions for the automation side of it, and OpenAI for the GPT models. So you have some common data issues. If this was like an application where someone pre-filled their data, you have someone coming in and they've spelt their name wrong. But he could be called Jahan. You don't know. Maybe he is called Jahan. So this is an interesting one. Maybe his name is Jahan and you don't want it changing it, but there could be inconsistent formatting of CA versus California. Or if you had duplicate entries, and also with the missing data, I don't know how filling contextual information, if you want to fill in missing data, I don't know what OpenAI is going to do. Is it just going to slap in some data it thinks should go there? Yeah, okay. I wouldn't really trust that. I'm no Python expert, but ChatGPT helped me do a little example of how you could define a function to clean the data, to go through a concept. So say you were entering data in, I'm now a new customer. It would put in the data into like a actual prompt, which will go through like a API, and it's like you are a data cleansing assistant, so you sort of see what goes in. You have the raw data going in, which is Johan, going to 123 main, and this is his address, and so on. This guy could exist. I have no idea. This could be his address. I hope not, but it's just an example. But you'll see this is where the prompt would go through, and the Azure function would run it, and then it would be inserted into SQL. This would also be a use case where you're kind of trying to clean the data on the fly. Should you do this? No. I would push back for the application to try and say you should probably have a bit more like drop-down fields. You shouldn't be inputting bad data. Let's say you're cleaning it in the wrong aspect. So you're just putting a band-aid somewhere or whatever. So I can, yeah. Would I do this? No. But as I said, it is pretty cool. There is different concepts. So maybe down the line, this is a concept of working, or to make sure it's like an extra verification. It shouldn't be your actual verification. If you do that, that's up to you. But I think you're going to run down a bad road because, yeah, spelling mistakes. How are you going to know if that is their name or not? There's that many different spelled names nowadays. If I want to be called Jahan, then why not? And also, this is a bit more row by row. So I come from a data world. It's not how SQL you should be doing it is like row by agonizing row. It's not really the best way. It's more batch-based process. And if you're data cleansing on the fly, that also makes me a bit. But hey, it is something that you could do, though. It doesn't mean you should do. There's more aspects out there. So Fabric is another one. So as you saw with Copilot, you actually can talk to the data sort of. Copilot is a bit more up and coming, I think, with agents, that you can miss out the middleman. I think you still need OpenAI, but you could actually connect it to a data source already and use Copilot to talk to the data. And now even with Fabric is also doing the same thing. With Fabric, though, I did a lot of talks last year about Fabric, and you need an F64. If you don't know what that is, it's the equivalent, it's the capacity of Fabric. It's the equivalent to what Power BI capacity was, which was a P1. It's freaking expensive. So Fabric has lower models nowadays, so it's a bit more easy to get a lower capacity. But to actually get AI skills working, you need the F64. And you get a trial version for 60 days of Fabric, but this isn't included. I don't think they've included it now, which is also a bit like, okay, you've got to pay a ton of money and then figure this out after, which is not really the way I do things. But that being said, this cuts out everything. So you literally log into Fabric, you have your data, and you don't need OpenAI. You don't need Azure AI Search. So that's pretty cool. And then you can even just ask your questions directly in the sense of saying, what is the next trend in my data sort of thing? So what is going to be in the next quarter? It's doing the next level of actually interacting with the database and actually generating a SQL query. Now, my question is, what is the SQL query that it's doing? So I can actually verify that, because I want to run that query and make sure it's right. I don't really like throwing it out there and saying, okay, generate this. Because how do you know it's doing it? How do you know the data is actually accurate? I would like to see what the query is doing to actually figure out that myself. But hey, that's where I also go with where I was saying you cut out the part. So if you had a data team, yes, they're the normally ones who are generating the SQL queries or whatever queries they are to access the database. It doesn't mean their role is going to diminish because business users can now just access data and ask questions. You still need someone sort of to verify that or to make sure the things are in the background running, because some of these aspects also do need some sort of guidance on help. There is more to come. This is one of the ones I was mentioning earlier about the Microsoft David guy. He made this, and I think he did this at a conference called RAG something. But this is a different aspect of it, and I've not set this up yet, but I really want to, because this is different to the way I was asking about the data, where I was saying what is CheckDB. This is where you can actually ask for the current trends. So you have to put in something like LangChain, which is open source, and then that would actually generate the SQL query. It would process a natural language and go through and generate the SQL query and then access the data upon what you're actually asking, which is more about how business users, I think, will want to interact with the data. But I would say this many, many times, there should be someone or something to verify that that SQL query is doing what you expect. And also, when it comes to permissions aspects, I have no idea. None of that I found about how that's going to be organized, because if you're just accessing it for an application, how does that application know what data you should access and should not? There's all different parts, because this is also currently sort of all in preview. And same with the embeddings, which is in SQL. So you could cut out certain parts even more. So they keep trying to add more and more functionality in there, so it makes it a lot easier to access the database. I actually flew through this talk quite fast. I also talk fast, but so what did we go through? You have the data challenges. What if you could just ask the reference architecture? I showed a couple demos and how the different cleansing can be done. That's it for this talk. So I apologize. It was a fast one. I blitzed through it. I was also very enthusiastic about it. But if you have any questions, please come and find me. And I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, have a good rest of the day.